Welcome to Academy Answers Podcast, a show dedicated to inspiring and providing actionable advice on life, business, happiness, success, and reaching your full potential. Have you ever felt frustrated that life isn't working out the way you expected? Have you been searching for answers without success? You've come to the right place. Each week, we bring you perspectives, ideas, and actionable content. We share with you proven and time-tested step-by-step strategies to help you live the life you deserve and make your dreams a reality. From health to finances to relationships to business, we provide the insights and strategies you need to reach your full potential. So buckle up and plug in, because Academy Answers Podcast is about to take you to a new level of personal success.
Morning, guys. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Academy Answers Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening in. And today I want to talk about a topic I'm going to call getting tested. And before you start to go all over the place wondering what am I doing, if I'm a doctor or I'm some advocate for something, it's not COVID testing, it's not HIV testing, but this is more relating to your own life. And I'll tell you a story. I used to be in the automotive industry. We had a repair garage, and we used to do a lot of suspension work, repairing motor vehicle suspension, the shock absorption, the front end parts, all that sort of stuff. Where the garage was situated, it was all smooth road. So when we drive out, it was nice and smooth, and there were no potholes or no rough roads or anything. So I had a mechanic at that point in time who did some suspension work on a gentleman's car. And the guy came, pick up the car. As usual, you do your work, you do whatever you do. You test the vehicle, you drive it around on the stretch in the vicinity of the area for a bit, and it was okay. You check it and make sure it's okay. It so happened that this gentleman took his car for some suspension work to be done on it. We did the work, and he left. Came, drove the car, tested the car with him sitting inside of it. It was okay. And about 2 days later, he came back to the garage pretty upset about this loud noise that he was hearing under the car while he was on his way to the country parts on a far journey, and he had to turn around, and we messed his business up totally. So he was pretty upset with us. So upon putting the car back on the lift, we realized that something was loose. The good part of it is that the mechanic was honest enough. One of my good guys, he said, look, if this was properly tightened, this bolt was properly tightened, and there's no wear there's no wearing in the threading of this bolt where I did this, where this bolt connects, there's no way since he left here this could have happened. So I think it was my fault I didn't tighten this bolt correctly. And I was a little bit upset that he didn't go through his checks and balances properly. But I was heartened that at least he admitted that to me, because it was going into the conversation, it was his admission that led to us finding a solution at that point in time. And I'll get to the solution in a minute. Because I'll tell you another incident to put it all together for you so you can understand it from different perspectives. That was a perspective where someone made a mistake. Now, this is a perspective where no one made a mistake. So, a friend of mine who was living in Europe was importing a car back to Jamaica. So he had this car in England and he was taking it back to Jamaica. So he imported it to Jamaica. His car that he had in Europe, driving around all the time. When he cleared customs with it and picked it up from the wharf, from the ports, he drove it straight to the garage because the noise that he was getting from underneath that car was unbearable. He came into the garage, we checked it out, we realized that he needed all 4 of his shock absorbers were weak and they were making noise. And he was wondering, he was asking me if it was possible that they could have switched them on the boat. And I told him that that's almost impossible. Nobody has time to go through this car suspension on the boat to take 4 of your suspensions off. And I asked him, how is the roadways in his city in London, in England? And he said, look, they're smooth, nice roads. So I'm like, okay. So this is your problem. Because these roads are bumpy, and it's not that smooth surface, you needed suspension, these shock absorbers a long time ago, but the conditions that existed in your city didn't reveal the problem that you needed a suspension. Because you see, what shock absorbers are, it is to give you a smooth ride, especially when the surface is uneven. The roadway is not the best. With my mechanic, when I was standing there and we were, getting the guy car tightened up, I asked him, so how come when we test drive the car, we didn't pick up that something was loose? There was no sound. It never felt shaky or anything. He said, well, Lowen, because these roads around here, this is a nice, wherever we tested the car is a nice smooth road. He wouldn't necessarily feel the effects of a loose bolt until he gets into rough roads or potholes or uneven surfaces. And from that day on, what the lesson that came from that, or the good thing that came from that, is that we drove out of that area where the garage is when going forward, when we're testing vehicles, and go to a community that have several stretches of bad roads, for want of a better term, potholes, uneven surfaces. And needless to say, we picked up on more problems in cars that we didn't start to work on yet. And we also had to put back cars on the lift after we thought it was done and it was smooth going out of the garage area, because the kinks start to show up when the road gets rough. And that's the lesson today. I'm telling you that unless you get tested in the tough times, unless the things that are undesirable turn up in your environment, You won't know your strength. You won't know your weaknesses. You won't build your strength, because strength is built through treacherous conditions and activities. You cannot think your way into being strong. You have to act your way into becoming strong or stronger. A lot of times we are in groups, we are around people, we are around family members, we are around friends, and everything is good. Everybody can pay their bills, everybody's car is running right, everybody don't need any help at work, everybody project is going good. And the kicker is that this can be happening for years. So you may not have car troubles for 5 years, or maybe when the car actually start to give any sort of a problem, it is on a weekend and you get it fixed, and you're back to work and it's okay. And it's not a technical thing, it's quick, or even if it's in a work day, you get it done and it's easy to figure out. You may have a good team, or you may be on top of your projects for 5 years in a row. And during this time, when your car is good, your project is good, your finances are good, you have friends who are around you and everything is good and rosy and beautiful. Associate, friends, family members. But then when the test comes, when someone is called upon to give you a ride for 4 days in a row, when someone is called upon to help you on a tough project on a weekend, overnight, in long hours, when someone is called upon to be there for you when you just can't do it by yourself, then you are shocked, because you're seeing a different behavior and you're appalled at the behavior, because you are someone who would be willing to do that for somebody, or would be willing to support or do anything to assist someone who you consider a friend. But that person is not showing up to help you or to do stuff for you or to be there for you. So you're appalled, you are upset, you're furious, because here it is that you think that you had a friend in this person 2, 3, 4 years, 5, 6, 10 years running, only to find out now that they are not the person you taught them to be. And you had no way of knowing, because the situation never arose. It was in a good environment. The surfaces were smooth, and you didn't realize. And there was nothing to reveal to you that these people aren't of the best character. They are not the type of people who you necessarily want to invest your time with or want to be around you. Because everybody you spend your time around is an investment of your time. Because it is the opportunity cost for not finding the other people who are your people or you should be spending time around. You have friends, you spend time with friends. You are investing the time. If there is anything that needs to be done, that needs to be discussed, all these things, it would be with that person. And you don't know, and you make that mistake. So be careful if you don't, or if you have never been tested. Be careful. If the people around you have never been tested, and if you have never been tested, if you have never seen any bad times, if you have never been hit with any great mishaps, if you have never seen any hardship, be careful. you need to test yourself. And some of these things you can simulate, meaning you can talk to somebody who has experience in, for example, your finances. You're like, hey man, this is how I look. I have 25,000 in the bank. I have this amount of debt. I earn this amount. My income is this. How do I cover the downside here? What could go wrong? How do I shore up? How do I add some security base to my finances? And you can shore up those things. But some things like relationship, marriages, families, friendships, it's hard to shore up those. Although you can listen to people, see how they relate to other people, but it's very hard to shore up those. But I'm just telling you, not to get mad, not to get bent out of shape when you are being tested or you are invested without being tested. It is a dangerous thing, and you got to tread carefully when you are invested without being tested. A lot of people are good weather type of people. They're only there, it's weather is good, everything is good. And celebrities and people who have never seen tough times see this a lot of, end up in this type of situation a lot of time, because they probably have attached friends to them that they are only knowing after they have had a lot of material gains. So they're skeptical a lot of times because they don't know who is there for the material gains or who is genuinely there because they care. And that can pose a problem a lot of time. And sometimes it is the reason why they are so defensive and reserved, because they don't know who are the vampires. And it's hard to tell when you already have the material things. So being invested without being tested needs a deep level of discernment to ensure that you're invested in the right place. So I just want to tell you this morning to look out for it, because it is a tricky situation and it absolutely needs to be addressed when you have a life to move forward, or you're looking at your life in a way to where you want to ensure that you're doing this thing right and you're getting and you're shoring up the pillars of your life, setting your foundation. And I always tell people that when people get hurt by people and when people get let down by people, and most times it's in the early stages, I always advise them to look at it this way. If you're going to 10, which is a hard climb, a huge effort, a sacrifice, a big investment, and someone is not, and someone disappointed you when you are at 2 or 3, consider it a blessing, because at 2 or 3 the disappointment might be very minimal in cost and hurt, but at 9 or 10 that might be too much for you to handle, and it might be much more expensive. So consider it a blessing when the test comes early and you are aware of the faults and the flaws. Have a good day, guys. Always a pleasure. Thank you.